Welcome to the Pharos Fit Podcast, where we help you to explore your capacity to move better, push further, and achieve your limitless potential through fitness, nutrition, recovery, and lifestyle. Hey guys, welcome back to the Pharos Fit Podcast. Hope you're all well out there. Good to be back with you. I'm here today with Emylee Covell, aka the Ruler of Repair, aka the best of the rest, aka, and my personal favorite, the Mistress of Mechanics.
Also your wife.
Also my wife.
Yeah. Hi.
Now that we've got that sorted out.
Those are great names. How long
right?
did you just come up with them right now?
3 minutes ago.
You really are brilliant, Peter. You got away with words.
Yeah. So we wanted to talk to you today, guys, about repair, about recovery from injury. We want to talk about a specific thing that happened to Emylee. As you guys know, we're trying to really push the importance of mechanics and repair at the club. We just started this new build repair thing on a Thursday to try and encourage people to do more of it. We do have a membership that likes to train very frequently, 7 days a week or 6 days a week.
Twofers.
And so obviously the more you take out of the bank, the more you have to pay back in, and we're trying to get people to pay back more in than they're used to doing. It's hard. Like, we don't all like doing it. It's the one thing we all kind of like avoid because it's not as fun as the hard stuff.
Sure. But
it's something that's crucial for us. But first of all, I want to kind of go back in time. Emily's going to talk about something that happened to her. She's talked about it on a podcast before. It's now been how many years?
It's been 3 years.
It's been 3 years. 3 years since it happened.
With a recent flare-up, which is why it's making it relevant now.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And obviously had a kid in that time frame.
And
so
had
forth.
a baby within that time frame.
There's a lot that goes into this. So obviously the injury that we're talking about is rhabdo, right?
Rhabdomyolysis.
Right, rhabdomyolysis, which Emylee got 3 years ago. We'll talk about how it happened. We'll talk about why we think it happened. And then we want to talk about the kind of like the recovery process and what that's looked like. Emylee gets hit up all the time on DMs about this. This isn't like a super rare thing anymore. This happens fairly frequently in the fitness industry.
Unfortunately.
They talk about it a lot in CrossFit, but any sport that has like a high volume demand or a high kind of like
eccentric loading
demand,
yeah.
It can affect people who are in those kinds of sports. So we'll talk a bit about that. But Emylee, first of all, let's go back in time. Let's talk about what happened, and then let's go into why we think it happened.
Okay, so 3 years ago, I remember, I've been following this program, a gymnastics strength program, because I really wanted to fine tune my strict muscle ups and all of that, fancy work. So I was doing handstand work, straight arm work, bent arm work, working a lot on the rings and the pirouettes and all of that stuff. And I had finished up a 3-month cycle, and then I wanted to have like a deload situation and just have fun, because I wasn't doing anything during that time, just gymnastics. I wasn't doing any cardio. I wasn't doing any strength training. I mean, I had front squats in it, but it was all mechanics based. It was not, nothing load, nothing heavy, nothing eccentric, nothing explosive. So in the deload week, I decided to do a really fun workout with you and Jeff, and we got into it. It involved 100 GHD sit-ups. And I remember being in that workout feeling alive. I felt so good. It was the best that I had. I hadn't trained like that in so long. It was so fun to feel that energy and the group camaraderie of us all getting together and just having fun. There was no moment during that workout that I was like, I'm going too far, or any athlete, any voice that was watch yourself or blah, 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 where a lot of times that does happen, right? You persist even though you feel a little glitch in the warm up, and then you're like, you try to brush it off, and it's like your body's trying to tell you something and you aren't listening, and then it reacts. This was the complete opposite. I had never felt more alive.
Right.
Then the next day I felt awful, but I thought it was in the good way. And
just
then
sore
like, but like extremely sore, like definitely like the most amount of soreness I had ever felt. But again, like, you know, felt like a reward at that time. And then another day goes by and I'm feeling like sick.
But didn't you work out again afterwards?
Oh, I worked out the next day. I think I worked out the day after. I worked out the next day and the day after. And then it wasn't until I was at this brunch with friends and we all ordered mimosas and I like hadn't drank before, you know, like up until that point. And I like went to go take a sip of it and it like smelled horrible. I was totally unattracted to like the smell of it. And I had like tasted it and then my stomach started like convulsing and it was like quaking. It was so weird. I definitely knew something was funky, but the thing with rhabdo is they always say like, oh, but is your pee Coca-Cola colored? And I didn't have that experience. So I didn't, you know, I'm like, oh no, I'm just really sore. Just kept getting worse. You know, I'm curled up into a ball. I'm like losing function. I feel like my organs were just going to fail. It just felt like I felt like I was dying. So rush me to the emergency room. I go right in and I say, I have rhabdomyolysis. I need you to test for CK levels and I need to get fluids immediately. And I need this to happen fast. And they were like, you don't have rhabdo, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I am happy to any other options, but I would appreciate if you just started jumping on that because I know that this is a common thing in my industry and blah, blah, blah. So, of course, it gets back and I have it. CK levels are like 15,000 and normal CK levels are like between 0 and 200. So it's like crazy high. Fast forward to 7 days in the hospital, being hooked up on fluids, being like, you know, drugged up on morphine and whatever else they'd give me, feeling horrible and really having that like moment of like embarrassment.
Well, let's talk about that in a minute. But but essentially, like all they can do is basically rehydrate you and give you painkillers, right? It's not like
that was the most incredible thing. Like people can die from rhabdo, like your kidneys. So for those who do not know it, I have the layman's term version of what rhabdo is. It's basically when you work out so hard that your muscles explode and your muscle tissue explodes out into your bloodstream, and it causes your kidneys go into haywire and you know can't flush things out. Your kidneys go into failure, renal failure, and then you know you're dealing with that shit for the rest of your life, you know. Or worst case scenario is it takes you out, and that happens sometimes. But the only thing that separated me from like life and death in that moment was hydration, which is one of the biggest tools that I left with, was like really the power of hydration. And we say that to athletes all the time. And, you know, as a soft tissue therapist, I say it to every client, like, make sure you drink a lot of water, more than you think you should, because you're definitely, you know, your tissue's getting all banged up. And like you say all of those things, but until you experience it and you, know the difference between being dehydrated and dying and, you know, hydrating yourself and being back to where you are, it's incredible.
I mean, what's really interesting about this, guys, if I were to say like 100 GHD sit-ups to someone in the street, that makes that a lot. But for someone like Emylee, like 5 sets of 20 GHD sit-ups historically for her isn't a ridiculous number. It's not a crazy workout.
No.
This happens a lot when, you know, you have athletes that used to do something a lot. They take a period of time where they don't do it, and then they come back into it with the same intensity and the same volume they used to do it at, but their body just isn't ready for it anymore. And it's too much of a shock to the system.
Yeah, we call it athlete brain in other circuits, where like there's that ego athlete brain that says, I can do this because you have, you know, experiential data of yourself in the past. Yeah. And so you're like, go, go, go. There's also that thing that like push through pain, push through blah, blah, blah. All of that.
Well, and this is very topical because we do have the you know, the Murph workout coming up that we're going to do. And, you know, we've been hopefully cleverly kind of progressing towards this by increasing the volume of our pull-ups, push-ups, and air squats, right?
Right.
If you were to go straight into that workout, having not done any pull-ups or push-ups for a year, you're going to be in trouble.
Or having not worked out in a year, having just come back.
It's not something you should just like jump off the bat. This has to be something you've worked up to and periodized towards. And it's super important that you do that. And there is something about eccentric loading and rhabdo, right? And it's something to do with the protein damage that happens when you eccentrically load.
Yes. That
seems to magnify the dangers of
so things,
and especially like GHD sit-ups, like eccentric pull-ups. Anything that has that.
A jumping pull-up is a really great example because you'll like quickly jump yourself up and then you'll load eccentrically on the way down. And if that's not something that like you progressively train, which we do and build all the time, right? It's time under tension. It's different varying, is it 2 second, 3 second, 4 second? Do you pause at the bottom? Do you drive out of the bottom? Like we practice and train that. But if you don't and you jump right into something that is both explosive and eccentric, then you can run into some trouble there. And because it happens so fast, because you don't notice, especially with jumping pull-ups, it's like you get to use momentum, you get to use other things that you can pattern something 100 times and not necessarily feel that it's doing as much damage as it actually
like you said, you were doing this workout, you're having a great time, you didn't really feel anything during the workout, and it was only 3 days later that this like really kicked in. So it's not like, oh my God, I'm in the hardest workout of my life, I think I'm gonna die, this is so hard. It's not even that. It's just like doing something to your body that it just
you're like, woo, 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 great, awesome, moving along. Oh man, this workout sucks. I feel great, It's totally how that happens. And it's like, first you feel like dying, then you feel reborn.
And it's happened to a lot of athletes. Like I've seen a lot of people over the past few years that they just admit like, it happened to me. I was doing this and it happened.
And it's like, I was gonna say it's embarrassing, but then at the same time, it's also like, man, if this kind of stuff happens to me and I made it my entire life to be in this industry and to help people heal from injury, then it's hard. It's hard for people, like it means that yes, it does need to be hammered in, because even the best of the best and the people who, who preach it all and know the science and stand by and like, have an entire community of people that they serve, like even I'm still gonna falter. And so that is why it's like, I'm so happy that we're doing these Thursday recovery days, because you can tell people the balance, you can get people down for a little game plan session, be like, all right, you want to balance out this much strength and this much conditioning and this much mechanics and repair. But a lot of times they're just going to do what they like, do what triggers that excitement of showing up and that like, the high that they get on doing some sort of like sprint workout or, strength training. And like they get excited because like maybe we're coming back from a hiatus. And so you just want to go hard in the paint, So it's nice that we're like, fine, you're not going to go to those classes. We're going to bring those classes to you.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so sad. Rookie move right there.
Rookie move. But also, like we were saying before, a lot of the time it is ego. So even someone like as experienced as you, like you said, you dedicated your whole life to being this repair guru, and you fell subject to this rhabdo disease.
Right.
So, it's not even a knowledge thing at a certain point, because good and well what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
But sometimes we just find ourselves in those situations where the ego takes over and you want to have fun and you want to compete and you want to be doing what everyone else is doing, and you end up, putting yourself in danger.
And I think it's important to note that like I did feel good. I had a good night's sleep. I felt blah, blah, blah. It was all of that. But it really was the sum of, long-term dehydration over time, right? Of a lot of stress over time. And then me doing this one program that was a super linear program that just focused on gymnastics for 3 months. So 12 weeks, which normally we work in 3-week cycles. So we change every 3 weeks. That would mean 4 different stimuli.
Yeah.
Good. That would mean 4 different stimuli that I'm like, progressing through. And I did essentially the same thing for 3 months. So I trained my body in a very specific way for 3 months. And then my brain was like, oh, I could just jump right into this other thing and think that like, oh, I'm training, but I'm not training in that way. So I should have knocked down the volume. I should have done half as many rounds. I should have have, all of I should have held at the top, I should have
Right.
gone to half instead of all the way. Like there are all those things that like now in retrospect, I understand what progressive overload means, because that's the perfect example of what it isn't,
Yeah.
I did one form of training for an entire block. I got my muscle up. I felt really good about that, 3 months of training, and I definitely got my strict muscle up, but then it also kind of, it deconditioned the rest of my body, that then put me at that risk. So, now walking away from that, nothing's more important than the balance of these systems and practicing what we preach in strength, conditioning, and mechanics.
And again, that's another good argument for like non-linear progression, right?
Yeah.
Because if you have linear progression, there's a lot of stimuluses that don't get work for a while or are going to fall to the wayside.
Right.
Whereas if you're non-linear, if you are mixing up the modalities throughout the week, then you're less likely to be subject to something like this.
Right.
Because you're always working on all of your different
Right. And you have a better,
systems.
and that's not even just physical, it's also mental, right? Like you do a varying, I'm like on this high, I got this strict muscle up, I'm stronger than I've ever been, I haven't even done cardio, I've done strength training, and look at me, I've been doing all of this stuff. So it like trained that in me as well.
Right.
So mindset wise, when you balance things out, sure, you gotta have some coffee. When you balance things out, you're also helping to train your mindset about like where you actually, like where your limits actually are and like what you're actually capable of, right? You train things that you're not necessarily good at, things that you're afraid of on a page that you look down at the workout and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to do that. I can't do that. That's not something for me. And then you like lean into it and it changes your mindset to be like, cool, I met myself where I am. I got excellent coaching. I was able to do the workout that I needed and I challenged my mindset too. And like I can both honor my limits, but then work to defy them through a varied program. Otherwise, you just talk yourself into these horrible brain patterns of like, oh, I don't do that. I don't do that. And it's like, that's not helpful because I'm like, I only do strict muscle ups. That's all I do now. I only do handstands and strict muscle ups and, everything else is just It's like now my life is so much more fun because it's like I can do a little bit of everything and I can hopefully knock on wood, knock on plastic tables, that hopefully now I can have a better idea of where those limits are and how to scale myself for any environment.
Yeah. Let's talk about the recovery process. Let's talk about, what happened right after. Like, how long were you laid up for? How long did it take you to get back to any kind of training? And then obviously you had the baby. Was it a year later?
Yeah. So I remember, this was all
or?
May, because I remember being in the hospital for Cinco de Mayo. And so this happens in May. I'm in the hospital for 8 days.
Margaritas in the hospital?
No margaritas in the hospital, unfortunately. Yeah. Alcohol and kidneys, like, don't go well together. So a week in the hospital, and then I don't think I did my dad came down. He stayed with us, if you remember that. He stayed with us, and he honestly, walking up the street was difficult. I could not lift myself up from a lying down position. Like I could not lie down and sit myself up. I could not do a sit up.
You recovered quicker from having a baby than you did from
I 1,000% recovered better from having a C-section than having rhabdo. Yeah. So my dad came out. I don't think I worked out for 8 weeks, and I would just slowly walk up, get up to we lived kind of on a slant hill, and I would walk up that, and I remember feeling that. And then I couldn't eat any protein. That was an interesting thing. I just could not, I couldn't stomach it. I had no taste for it, and I couldn't digest it. I would feel stomach issues right immediately after eating it.
Well, it's harder for your body to break down, right?
Really hard. Yeah. Which is both a good thing.
That's why you say it's good.
That's why it's good. Yeah. But then, so I remember my dad came down and brought me lots of soups.
Yeah.
Lots of liquids, lots of bone marrow type things, all that stuff. And then, carby type things. All I wanted was carbs.
Right.
And that lasted for about 8 weeks. And then I kind of approached it from this place of, again, because I'm a professional and because I was super embarrassed by this entire experience, I was like, well, if it's going to happen, I'm going to use it as an opportunity to learn and to like be a better resource and to,
well, yeah, that's how you have to, yeah.
Well, yeah, because you read it on a textbook and you know what rhabdo is and you can tell people what it feels like and how to recover from it. But, you know, going through it obviously
there's nothing like experience.
Yeah. So I started off with all isometric stuff, all isolated things. I started with all supine stuff. So I didn't do any like planking or stretch. Like I didn't stretch a cobra. I can't even remember the timeline. Right. I think I have a few blog posts that I'm going to try to find before we've published this, because I know I did like a confessions of rhabdo part 1 and 2 that I'll try to link to. But yeah, it was a while before any of that happened. And then I slowly started introducing light aerobic capacity work. The first place I went is onto a bike. So I basically was probably a whole month of just sitting on the spin bikes, being super grateful that we had a hybrid facility that offered all these different types of programs and ways to move. And that helped to build confidence, aerobic capacity. It helped for me to also really test things out, because it's, you know, I'm seated, but there's some hip flexor work. How does that feel after every one? And it really was a test. It was like I would keep little journals, both in my brain and on paper, because I'm a journaler, about like how I felt, what I did that day, how I'm going to like maybe take it to the next level in the next week, and just tried to build myself a progressive overload. I remember squatting. I started box squatting. I shortened every range. So I just focused on patterning I did isometric and isolated work. Then I focused on patterning. And if you go way back in time to one of the first podcasts we did where we talk about the repair protocol of position, activation, range of motion, adhesion, I tried to follow that same pattern. So it's like, okay, what are the positions? Well, the first one was to just sit myself up from a lying down position. That was like, you know, and then you get into your more like your squat and your hinge and your overhead. Overhead took me a really long time to get to any of that kind of like stretchy type stuff. So I took it just one step at a time. Can I get in the right position? If not, where's my position? What do I feel when I'm in this position? What can I slowly start to stabilize and isolate and activate? What's the range of motion that I can control? So not how much can I get, but how much can I stabilize? And then the adhesions. And that was interesting for me because a lot of times I'm a doer. So I'm like, you got a problem? I'm gonna solve it, you know? And it's hard when you're in your own recovery and when your muscle tissue's like exploded and all I want to do is like, it's like soft tissue's not going to get you out of this. Like stretching is not going to get you out of this. It's going to take this like right balance of doing less and feeling more, you know?
Right. Got to rebuild. You just go and tell him, Brandon.
Go ahead, Will.
So, you know, this was like immediately after the episode happened, and then like we said before, a year into it, you basically fell pregnant. A year into your recovery.
Timeline. So, back to this. Thanks for keeping me on track. You're a very good host. That happened in May. I get pregnant in February. So May, I got through that. I remember my New Year's resolution was like to get back from rhabdo and like to be as fit as humanly possible. I also remember that it was to have more sex, and then I got pregnant right after that, and I was like, great, so my body's gonna go to shit, and here we are.
Sorry about that.
I guess, you manifest something into the universe and it listens. That's the lesson there.
And do you feel that the rhabdo thing, did it affect your pregnancy directly in any way? Did you have to like do things differently?
I remember being really worried about it, but I don't remember it being that big of an issue. Yeah. And
because I guess like at that point, you were obviously when you're pregnant, you were obviously super aware of hydration and your nutrition and stuff like that because you're
I had never
more...
treated myself better
right.
than when I was bearing another human.
Yeah.
Like it's just such a testament to like people will do so much in service to others, but then like neglect all of those things for themselves,
right.
But yeah, I took such good care of myself.
Vitamins and
prenatal every day. And then it's like you're in this like, regimen and you're doing all the best things for yourself. So I remember that being fine, but I remember worrying about abdominal separation and diastasis and all of that. So during that time is when I got pregnancy and postpartum athleticism certified. So during pregnancy, I was really deep into that because it was a concern of mine. And because I had this like weird, strange kind of outlying thing, I was like, I wonder how that will affect pregnancy. I wonder how diastasis and my entire abdominal wall shredding is going to affect my postpartum journey, how that's going to affect my pelvic floor, if I'm going to have any weird things. So I leaned really heavily into like learning and knowledge and trying to set myself up for that, knowing that I was a little scared about how the postpartum journey was going to look, especially since I knew early on that we were going to have a C-section. Because I was, for those that care, I was placenta previa. Not that I even need to justify it. So funny. You feel like in the moment, you're like, oh, I wonder why that happened. But I was placenta previa for pretty much the entirety of it. Every ultrasound was like, a thing. And it wasn't until the very last ultrasound that we had that we said that he moved. We had already scheduled the ultrasound or the C-section at that point. It was already kind of like in my head, I had made it up that like this was the time and this was the, so we had made that choice. But then I was extra worried about like, okay, it's going to be really difficult when like it's literally sliced open. So it's like it's, torn apart from the inside and then it's sliced open via C-section. I was definitely very worried about the postpartum journey.
Right. But it worked out. How was the postpartum journey in the end? Like,
in short, I was very surprised. I think in my defense, I did a lot of prep work. Right. But at the same time, you can do all the prep work in the world and it's going to bear no mind on how your recovery is because everyone is so different. And I have heard so many stories of women who did all the right things and then ended up with tearing and ended up with, pop and having all of these types of like issues postpartum that I try not to like be like, oh, it's because I did this perfect, blah, blah, blah. It's just like it's how it's ended up being how it happened. Right. And I do think that the knowledge and the all the attention that I put on that paid off because bringing awareness to something made the recovery easier.
Well, I remember you coming home and walking up the stairs. Like that
was their big issue.
Yeah, they were like, you're never going to be able to walk up the stairs. And you came straight home, walked up the stairs, and you seemed to be, you were moving around pretty.
Right.
Not easily, but like you were moving around.
Yeah. That we have 75 steps to get up to our house. And so when we were in the hospital, I really wanted to go home because I just didn't want to be in the hospital anymore. And they were like a little worried because when I go home, I'm going to have to go up the stairs. And they were like, I don't know. And I was like, I don't care. It's worth it. They'll carry me up the stairs and have a chair and carry me up the stairs if they need to. So I was hell bent on getting home, which I think was probably why. And some pretty good postpartum drugs that kind of fake you into that confidence. Yeah. But again, that progressive overload mindset of being like, okay, now I got two things on me. I'm recovering from rhabdo in addition to recovering from pregnancy, in addition to being postpartum and now having, and now just being a parent and how physical all of that, those demands are, just still trying to approach it from that place of like, okay, well, what positions can I get into? Right. What type of activation can I do? What range of motion feels good? What strategies in my breath can I have to make things a little bit easier? And then, just kind of take it from there.
And I know you've been working on putting this together to help other people, in a postpartum sense.
Yeah, in a perfect world, I would love to say that by the time this podcast came out, that it would be ready, but that's not the case. All good, but like a lot of good things take time. But yeah, I've gotten together with a few other moms and ladies and pregnancy and postpartum coaches who we are like working on putting together some resources and feel excited about all that. But yeah, I like leaned heavily into, okay, I know everyone's journey is going to be different. I know that there's no kind of one-stop shop. So let me try to like learn about all the different ways and all the different strategies and all the different things that I might need for myself. And then that's just going to make me a better resource for my community and, you know.
And the thing you're putting together, is it like a step-by-step thing of like, this is what you should do at this phase, this is what you should do at this phase? Is it like that, or?
Kind of. The idea is definitely pregnancy and postpartum strategies around mindset, fitness, breathing, all of those things to help you throughout, like, you know, whether a full pregnancy or whether it's the last trimester that kind of leads you into that first 6 weeks postpartum. We'll have a readiness test that'll have a series of, I pair things off of the movement screen, and anytime someone comes in for an intro, I kind of want to see your readiness level, and a kind of checklist, movement screening tools to know, like, okay, when can I start introducing, know, these types of movements?
Well, it's interesting because the bar has changed so much in training whilst pregnant and training, you know, postpartum recently, that it is a whole new world, really.
Right.
You know, I remember when I was first coming through, it was like, you should do these exercises, you shouldn't do those exercises. But now it seems women are doing pretty much all exercises until the baby pops, it seems.
Right.
Is there anything that you see that you're like, I wish they wouldn't do that?
Okay, so this is such a touchy subject because it really is like no woman is the same, and no, you know, we try to not say, okay, here's when you're going to stop this and stop that and start this. And like, everyone will be different. And the more you can individualize, the better it is. However, that's like, you know, bad for marketing, you know, because you want steps and strategies and that a program to follow and all of that. But I do think that the big thing is to start with is like mindset and strategy. And that means if you have the right mindset, meaning I'm not too dogmatic and I'm going to push through whatever, and I got that athlete brain in the forefront of my mind, and I'm going to train for birth, and I'm going to train for, you know, I'm going to train despite all of this and, you know, all of that. Like, I think that can be that can be too much, but then it can also be, oh, I really need to take it easy. I can't lift more than 10 pounds. I can't do this. I'm just going to do stretchy stuff. I'm not going to do anything that, you know, challenges. So there's such a wide range of what people can and can't or should or shouldn't do. So I feel like if you just start off with this idea of like, okay, I want to train for a proper mindset, I want to train to move. I want to have strategies that help me to do that for as long as possible. And when things go awry, like it was one day I was running for a while, and then one day I was like, that was my last run. Like, I'm going to stop running, right? You remember that. Right. I remember, you know, doing step ups and those feeling horrible and then like causing more SI stuff. And I remember being fascinated because that used to be a modification I would use all the time and be like, oh, if you can't do this, then like single leg stability and all of that. And it's like, it didn't matter. It felt horrible on my body. So, you know, something that I would totally easily give as a suggestion to somebody didn't work for me. So it's hard about that. Like, you know, there's a can versus should. Could I have done a bunch of squat snatches and done muscle ups up and through pregnancy and done handstand push-ups and all of this crazy stuff and tried to run all the way through to the end and say, you know, fuck it, I'm gonna do it anyway? I could have done that. And people definitely choose to do that. And sometimes it pays off really well for them, right? And they have no issues afterwards, and it's totally fine. Right. A lot of times we see that sometimes the more you push it with that athlete brain that just like pushes forward on things, sometimes the more of a candidate you are for like tearing, for hypertonic, for pelvic floor issues afterwards, for, you know, peeing while doing double unders later or like postpartum. And that's something that you may laugh about, but like it's something that could have been quote unquote avoided. You want to be careful with that type of language, but like something that maybe could have been strategized through pregnancy. So it's not as much of an issue right now. You know, it's so hard. It's like everything has a cause and effect and you don't always know what that is. So I try to just urge women when they first get into pregnancy to like have some resources at hand, have a coach that like helps work with you to figure out where you are and to not just push where you are to meet you where you are physically, but also help around the mindset portion of training athletes, because like training for pregnant, like we say, like pregnancy is temporary, but postpartum is forever, So it's like there's this like 9-month period of your life that feels like forever, but it's a temporary period of your life. And if I can think of that as like a very specific training phase, a very like it doesn't even necessarily need to be a deload phase or anything that that's less than, but it's a very specific training for a very specific outcome, right, of birth. So a lot of times athletes will be like, well, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I'm just going to do it all the way up and through to the end, and like train as if I'm training for the CrossFit Games, or train as if I'm doing the sport. But I think it's nice to, if you do, when you become pregnant, to say like, okay, I'm training for this. This is the season of my life that I'm in. So I'm going to be the best athlete that I possibly could be training for this season. Yeah. And so then you'll go in with a different mindset. You'll have a different set of strategies, and it won't always be that battle of like, can I versus should I versus is that my ego that wants me to do it versus am I capable of this? Is this going to give me issues later? Do I care? Let's just do it, like all those things.
So let's kind of like come full circle on it. So, you go through the rhabdo thing, you go through the pregnancy thing, you go through postpartum. At what stage, if ever, did you feel like you were back to your old self and that you can work out now like you've always been able to work out?
That's a really good question. And if I am being honest with both myself, you, and the people at Pharos Fit Club, it's that I haven't, it's hard when it's back to back with it's rhabdo, it's baby,
and then it's pandemic.
And I did not have the best strategies in place during quarantine to, like, if we're talking mindset and movement and, I did not have very good strategies there. And I am definitely now at that place where I'm like, okay, let's get back to me.
Right. Right.
Like, and it really is that. It's like I can just put my head down and work. I have that like innate ability to just like totally suffer, and it serves me, and then it also gives me rhabdo, right? Like it's that same thing. Like it's a part of what makes me great and like relentless and like good at what I do, but it also has that like dark side of overdoing it, not refilling the cup, or like you said, like your body's like a bank account and you can only make so many withdrawals before you need to make a deposit, and I'm just so used to withdrawing, and like I need to get back into that balance place of
I think it happens a lot in fitness where like we get into fitness, we get super passionate about it, we work out all the time, we get ourselves in great shape, we feel great, then we decide to make it a career. And then slowly but surely, as we focus more on the career of fitness as opposed to like being fit, sometimes it can lead to us being less fit as business owners than we were as people who are in love with fitness.
Sure. And I always justify that because, one of our interview questions when coaches come in is, do you consider yourself an athlete or do you consider yourself a coach?
Right.
And it's like slightly a trick question, right? And there's no right or wrong answer, but it is how you answer that says a lot about you. And for me, like, I am a coach first. I never got into this because I was an athlete that wanted, to pursue my athleticism and like really do more. And that I like, here's my training program and I can't wait to wake up and train. And oh my God, I just want to see my six pack. And like, I never had any of those types of like performance or aesthetic type goals. It always came from a place of, I had rheumatoid arthritis. It came from rehab. It came from then being able to be capable of things to then approaching fitness from a place of like, oh, maybe I don't need to look at the fitness industry as just a, marketing ploy to hate yourself and get you to this like thin ideal that the only thing that matters is your body fat percentage and blah, blah, blah. Like I can approach it from a place of movement, of rehab, of like movement is medicine. And if I can, help pay that forward, then like I've done something good, know? So because I never came at it from that perspective, sometimes it also is my excuse, right? Like I will stop a workout at any time if a member needs something. Like if you need me, if you need anything, like I'll stop and get you a towel. I'll get you this. No one's at the front. I'll stop. I got you. You know, like I have that so ingrained into my own brain that it's the excuse. It's the story I tell myself that then keeps me from carving out time for myself, from making it a non-negotiable, for doing the things that for myself. Just an interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. And it's, you know, we're all, again, like you said before, we're all different in the way that we view fitness and the way that we our relationship with fitness. And I've had this conversation many times with people, like, just because you're not fascinated with, like, being in the best shape possible or being the fittest person in the gym or always looking great, doesn't mean you're not, like, a great coach or very valuable to the fitness industry. I think it's a mistake to think, and it's almost an insecurity to think
that you have to.
I have to be the fittest person in the gym if I'm going to coach anybody.
Definitely.
Because you think that people are only going to listen to you if you're amazingly fit.
That is a lie that coaches tell themselves, that like, oh, I have to be the best athlete that I can be, and by being a better athlete, I'll be a better coach. So
members will be impressed by me and think, I'm an awesome coach.
Yes.
You know, I say it all the time. The truth is, people don't care about that. People only care about how much you can help them. And you're great at helping people. Like, people will go to you because they know 100% that you can help them get out of the situation.
Or at least I will try. I'm a challenge accepted kind of person, you know.
But they believe you have the knowledge base and the experience to help them through it. And that is, you know, a lot more important than like being the fittest person on earth.
Right. Now that, with that being said, I used to drive coaching strategies with a lot of ego. Like I loved, I remember early in my coaching career, I loved walking up to a dude's bar and deadlifting, like demoing and deadlifting with the dude's bar that they spent 10 minutes warming up on. Like, and I would see the look on the members' faces, and like when you beautifully demo something and people like clap for you afterwards, like there's that high from a coach that makes you feel like, oh, you know, like,
I mean,
it's that fine line.
It's a fine line. And it's all within reason, because I do believe that coaches should be in shape, and I do believe they should practice what they preach, and they should train and all that kind of stuff. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, but picking up that's like all ego, all stupid. That's like all just doing it to, you know, because you want people to see you as the fittest person in that room, and that's why they should listen to you, as opposed to because you command the room, because you manage the group, because you're just a great coach.
Right.
Yeah.
So looking at the spectrum of recovery and repair as a whole, now we've talked about obviously the injury you had, the recovery from that injury. We've talked about pregnancy, post-pregnancy, how you've kind of like fought your way back to where you are now. How do you see your journey from this point in terms of how much working out are you going to do? How much repair are you going to do? How do you break down your week? You know, being this person that you are with everything that you've been through, how do you break down your week now into I'm going to do a certain amount of this and a certain amount of that, and I'm going to have balance, because I know that I need that balance to keep me mentally and physically where I need to be?
Yeah. Great question. I am kind of approaching it from this place of, and I'm inviting others to do this as well, because I do a lot of intros here. And so a lot of times people come in with goals of like body fat percentage and stuff like that. And now I'll kind of walk into an interview and an intro and say, like, what do you like doing? Like, what do you want to do? What are you curious about? What do you see other people do? And you're like, oh shit, that's cool. I want to be able to do that, you know? So like for me, I definitely am coming at it from this place of like, let's find the things that I enjoy and fall back in love with fitness again. That's going to help me to do the thing that I always say, 90% is showing up, right? And then from there, it'll give me physical goals to chase and things that require, you know, and try to find goals that are within the realm of mechanics, strength, and conditioning. So with that being said, I know I want to get back into like gymnastics based stuff, and I know a piece of my my training wants to be that. Like I love coming into Tuesday and bench pressing, but right now I want my Tuesdays to turn into my pulling days, to turn into like my gymnastics training upper body days. So I'm like doing my own. I never miss a leg day at Pharos Fit Park. And I don't do my own leg day because like, honestly, like don't fuck with perfection. And I'm not even saying that because you're in the room. It's like people who come in and I'm like, just come on Monday. Like it's like the best leg workout that you will get no matter what Monday it is, no matter where we are in the cycle. Right. It will like, just don't doubt it. Just come, you know, never miss a Monday at Pharos Echo Park. So I'm finding my strength on Mondays. I'm finding my gymnastics on Tuesdays. I'm expecting myself to be really sore on Wednesdays to do some aerobic capacity work, like ride type style work. And then I'm trying to give myself the goal that I'll cut, instead of how many repairs and spending hours here, I'm trying to say 15 minutes every single day.
Right.
And carve out the time, because for me, it's like, I'm just out of a habit, right? Like we just did the Limitless Challenge. And honestly, that was probably the closest 42 days of feeling like I was back on track. And then of course, you know, we decided to sell our house and be homeless for a month and, you know, have other things come into play. So for me, it's like just find the things I like, fall in love with fitness again, find the things that I enjoy, and then try to do the bare minimum that gives me the consistency that I need to do it often enough that moves the needle. Because right now I'm like, oh, I'll do a lot on Monday and then I won't work out the rest of the week or something, you know, something like that.
Right.
Where it's like, I'll do this and then I'll spend an hour afterwards doing accessory, and then I'll you know, stretch, and then I'm like 3 hours on a Monday, and then I'm like, whoo, that was great, you know. And then Saturday comes by and I'm like, oh my God, you know. So yeah, showing up 90%, find something you like. That's my
I always said the most successful program is the one that you're going to really enjoy.
Yeah.
The one you're going to keep showing up for.
Right.
If you're not going to keep doing something you hate.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. So rope climbs, want to be able to do rope climbs. Yeah. We're doing a lot of, we're doing research on like outdoor rig situations and monkey bars and stuff. And I would love to, you know, like I used to be the kind of kid that would like climb any tree, and it's so fun to see Wyatt be just like that like he wants to climb on top of everything, and he's very like he physically explores everything. So I like want to get back to that roots too. Like I want to be able to like jet up a tree.
Yeah, there's something fun about like climbing ropes, flipping tires, carrying sandbags, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It's a different kind of feeling. It's a different kind of like, I hate the word, but functional training kind of experience. It feels very outdoorsy.
Yes.
It feels very classic.
Yes.
And yeah, I can definitely see that being in our future.
Yeah.
In our very near future.
I feel like we're planting seeds here.
Yeah, I think so. But there is something about that. It's a connection. It's a connection to the earth.
Yes.
You know, in a way.
Yeah.
That's different from being in the gym.
And like innate human nature, right? Like,
right.
You know,
it's playground shit.
Yes, the playground. Like I want to move as confidently as Wyatt moves. I mean, he stumbles around like crazy, right? But he just isn't afraid of things. He like sees a bar and he instantly jumps up and tries to climb on it. He sees something to lift and he picks it up and throws it over his shoulder. Like he just naturally does all of these things. So yeah, he will be my inspiration. I just need to be as fit as Wyatt is for the rest of his life, and that's a good goal.
That's a great goal. Okay, guys. So there's a lot in here. If you have rhabdo, or if you've had rhabdo, or if you have any questions about it, email us info@Pharos Athletic Club.
Or you can find me on Instagram at Emylee Covell.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think in the show notes there's a couple confessions if you want to read about my embarrassment.
Yeah.
Way back in the day.
Yeah. But it can be something that's very scary for people, and they can, you know, be very worried about how they're going to recover from it and how they're going to get back to the gym.
Oh, it was horrible. I thought I was going to die. And it's also worth noting very quickly, I still have kidney issues. Like I just am getting over a kidney infection where, again, I thought I was dying. It was the same kind of feeling. It was also that realization of like, oh, this isn't going to go away. Like I'm the sum of all of my parts. All of my past injuries will come and creep up to haunt me one day, and this will too. And it means that I have to continually stay hydrated. Like I need to, and not just like, okay, I do it if I have a heavy week. It's like, I need to make this a pattern.
Honestly, it's that thing where it's like taking care of yourself does not mean just take care of yourself when you're sick. It
Right.
means you have to always take care of yourself so that you don't get sick.
So true. Yes.
And, you know, we often fall into that bad habit.
So do as I say, not as I did.
Yeah. Also, obviously, guys, if you are pregnant or if you're looking to get pregnant, you're worried about training and how you're going to recover from pregnancy.
Yep.
Obviously, reach out about that.
Yeah, or if you have any like injuries or weird things, if you're coming back into the gym right now and you're afraid about jumping right back in because it's not, it's not the kind of training you've been doing, like come and chat. Like building movement confidence and building the right program for you is like what fires us up. You know, we don't want to just serve fit people. We want to serve people in wherever they are in their journey. Yeah. And that also then sometimes means the, not so fun parts.
Well, and I think that's particularly relevant in the post-pandemic situation where a lot of people didn't move for a year. Yeah. They stayed at home, they didn't move, they lost strength, their bone density went down a little bit, their ligaments and tendons aren't as quite as strong as they were, their muscles aren't as engaged as they were, and they come back and try and do the same kind of stuff they did before, and they're finding that their bodies just
it's a lot.
Refuse. They're just not going to do it, and they're going to either they're just going to be incredibly sore, or they're going to get hurt. So, reach out, come see us if you have questions. Don't be afraid to ask,
and trust the recovery Thursdays. Don't just not show up because it's not what you wanted to, because it's not deadlift day anymore. Okay,
right?
I'm telling you,
I have plenty of other days in which to fuck you up. Like one day of not fucking you up will do you the world of good. Okay, guys, that is it for today. Emylee, thank you so much.
Thank you for
I think this stuff's great for people to hear because it's an honest account of something terrible that you've been through. And we need to have honesty and transparency in these things. Otherwise, we just don't learn. And other people can't learn from us. So thank you for opening yourself up.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, that is it. We are at 1316 Glendale Boulevard. Come see us. We are now fully open. Also, we're on Instagram at Pharos Echo Park. And yeah, we'd love to see you. We'd love you to drop in, check out the facility, and come and see what we're up to. All right, guys, we'll see you next time. Take care. Bye.